Yes, today Greg and I are going to show you how and why we use TextExpander and Meteor. But to start out, I'd like to show you a bit about what TextExpander actually is. And so I've got a little demonstration. So TextExpander is a tool that lets you type with more speed and accuracy by letting you gather up things that you normally type, store them up for later, and trigger them right as you're typing using a quick abbreviation. So I'm going to head over to a text field. It works in any text field on your Mac. And so I'm going to type out my chosen abbreviation. And right as I hit the last character, TextExpander replaces it with what I want it replaced with, which was my email address. And so taking that a little farther, I can write up an email really fast. So say I'm talking to Bob. I set up a snippet. Snippet is what is the combination of the abbreviation and the content. Set up a snippet for a common email opening, for a common reply to a question I get, and I have another snippet for my signature. So that is an email answered in 30 seconds. So this, of course, goes beyond just emails. It's whatever you type. So if you need like code templates, I use it with my HTML. So if I just clear this out, I have an HTML table, and conveniently all of the opening and closing tags and brackets are there. Sometimes I forget those and it messes everything up. Something interesting happened. The cursor actually jumped up between these two brackets, so that way I can just sort of expand the snippet and continue typing right where I need it. So that's a special feature we call a macro. We have several of those types of things that let you create and customize the things that you expand. So if we take a look at what TextExpander looks like, this is the app for Mac. On the left, we have a list of all of our snippets combined together into groups. And then on the right, I have the content that I want to expand, all typed out into this field. And then down below, I have the abbreviation that I want to type instead of having to type all of this out by hand. Up here in the editing bar, this is where we hide all of our cool macros that you can use. So for example, if I click this button, this is the position cursor here, that's what helped the cursor jump to a different spot in the snippet. So you just click on that and that will be entered into the snippet content. So that's what TextExpander does. I want to talk a little bit about why we chose to use it in the first place. So 2006, we were a very small team, and we were using a similar tool, a text expansion tool, to try to get through all of our support emails. Maintaining good customer relations is important for a small growing company. And one day that tool stopped working. And so we spent a couple of days suffering through typing things out and copy pasting things over, and taking 5 to 20 minutes on an email that used to take 30 seconds can really kill your schedule. So that's when we started looking for another tool. We found TextExpander, which had been sort of decommissioned by its owner, so we acquired it and turned it into TextExpander for Mac. A couple of years later, we made an iPhone version, and that's when people started using Dropbox to sync all their snippets between their devices, and we built in support for that. Following that, we started to get requests from other busy teams like ours asking us to build in better support for syncing snippets between people. So between an individual's devices, it's worked all right, but syncing between people was messy. You could either just email someone a copy of the file, and then if you make any updates, nothing, they don't get them. Or you can host the file on your own server, and then there's some little magic you need to like set things up, and then you still might not get people their updates, and you had to save and copy and rehost to like make updates. It was messy. So about 2015, we sat down and thought about how we could do sync for teams really well, and that's what brought us to Meteor. And that leads to April 2016, when we launched an all-new version of TextExpander, and that was a really huge and exciting leap for us. So we went from having a standalone Mac and iOS app to being a subscription service that included apps for Mac, iOS, all new Windows app, and also a web app that controlled our all new sharing syncing that was run by Meteor, and that was wonderful. I mean, even just setting up the app was way easier. You download it, you sign in, all your snippets are there. I managed to do it today to set up this presentation. It was really easy. And so also being able to share, I told you about the rigmarole with sharing before. Now all it takes is an email invitation. I send an email, somebody gets it, clicks a button, snippets are on all our devices, it's done. So let's take a look at that. So here I am signed into the web app, into my account. I have the same group of snippets open that I have open up here. So if I open up this exact same snippet, you'll notice it has the same snippet editor as in the Mac. We kept that the same. And so if I put in a change and save it, this is instantly on all of my devices. See, it just popped up there. And also on all of my colleagues' devices, which is great. So a real-world example of how this has been huge for us is my email signature. So let me show that to you again. So we all share the sort of marketing message that's here at the end of the signature, and I like to update that once in a while with new and interesting information. Before, like I said, I'd have to email that file and then hope our busy engineers had time to update their email signature. Now, since we share this snippet, I update it, and I know for sure everyone has got their update, no chasing down stragglers. This also allowed us to build an entire Teams tier. So if you create a TextExpander organization, that allows you to gather up all of your team members and all of your snippets together, so that way you can have a couple of people that you make admin who can group the snippets appropriately and then share them with the people who need them, and also choose who gets to edit and who is just read-only and gets to just benefit from using the snippets. So TextExpander ends up as a sort of company knowledge base, like all of these people over the years acquiring information, putting them into snippet form. You really want to keep that with the company. So when people leave, you want to keep those snippets of information in your control. So that's partly why you want snippets owned by your TextExpander organization. And so let's take a look at the admin interface we built. So I'm an admin of my organization, the Smile organization. And so here I have all of the people in the company, all of our groups, and even better, all of our statistics. So all of our shared snippets, we can see how much time we're saving, 104 hours in the last 30 days. We'll try to beat it next month. We can also get more granular, so we can look at each individual snippet, how many times it was used, to see which ones are really benefiting us and whether we need to drop some and try something else. Another thing that we have included is good onboarding. So if you want to add a team member quickly, here if I go to the Members tab, you can see all of the people, but also there's this auto sign up feature. So if I turn this on, anyone who uses my company email address to create an account on TextExpander will automatically be pulled into the organization. And in this group tab, we have all of the snippet groups that are owned by the organization. And if I turn on auto join, all of those groups will automatically be shared with the person as soon as they're entered into the organization. So that saves you setup time. And now if we go and look at a group, here in the sharing tab, once you have the person share it with the group, they'll get your default permissions. So you don't even need to fiddle with their permissions after they're in. All of that is taken care of for you. Here you can see all two of us who are currently sharing this organization. If I wanted to share it with more people, I just click the little person button and I've got everybody in my organization. I check their names and they automatically have the group. They don't even have to respond to an email invite. They automatically have it, which saves you extra time. And so over the last year or two of watching teams use TextExpander, we found some really interesting information. For example, on the most active teams, the average user saves a full 8-hour workday over the course of a month. And that's been really exciting for us. And we're looking forward to what else we can do. And now I'll let Greg show you how we do what we do.
So why did we choose Meteor for TextExpander? Obviously, the main goal was the rapid development of a reactive web app, and we needed the infrastructure to take our existing app and do what we've done. And in fact, that which Meteor purports to be, it is, which is great. Another advantage was that it made it easy for us to build a multi-device sync layer on top of DDP. We were delighted to find that there is excellent documentation for an early stage framework, and no offense intended, we were used to Cocoa, which was 10 years old then and had its origins in NextStep, so you could call it 20 years old as well. So they had a bit of a head start on the documentation front, and we found that the documentation resources that were available to us were really fantastic and helped us get on board really quickly. We're delighted that it was based on a solid foundation of Node.js, and that there's this fantastic community that comes along with it. So, at the time, there was Meteor Chef and your first and second Meteor application, and then that's also evolved now into Meteor Guide. Here you have Meteor Night, and you have the Meteor forums online. So there's a rich, robust community backing what we're doing and what we're building on. This is a little bit about the architecture of TextExpander. So at the bottom, you're very familiar with the Meteor application server and the MongoDB database. And so we're using Galaxy, Meteor's application platform, and we're using MongoDB Atlas for our database. On top of Meteor, we've got our admin client, and that's probably the most traditional architecture where we have the very straightforward web app that you saw Maia demonstrate earlier. Then we also have the web client, which includes the snippet editor, which is also written in JavaScript and is shared across all of our clients. Then there's the Mac, iOS, and Windows clients, which share underneath them a transport layer that interfaces with Meteor, and that's how we get the snippets across and sync them between the clients. We came to this with existing clients. So we had a code base on the Mac and on iOS, and we made our decision to build the top Meteor shortly before we began writing the Windows client. We considered Cordova for harmonizing the UI across the clients, but at the time, and still that's sort of primarily mobile. We also considered Electron, but keyboard expansion is kind of notoriously platform specific, and so we have this very large core of platform-specific items that we have to deal with. So we focused on leveraging Meteor for the web app, which of course it's excellent at, for the cross-platform sync layer, and for its reactivity. And the other thing that we did was whenever we built something new, so in the case of the sharing preferences, we built that on the web app side, and we were capable of directing the client to the web app, which saved us a lot of time in getting started. And we will probably eventually bring some pieces of that back to the client, but it was really fantastic to be able to leverage, build this once, and deploy it across everything and have it work, which has been really, really neat for us. In terms of the sync, that's a thin layer on top of DDP, so it's platform agnostic JavaScript. And what we found there is that we started by subscribing to the snippet groups and then subscribing all the snippets within the groups, and found that that didn't perform all that well. But likewise, we also found that the advice from Meteor developers was be judicious about your subscriptions. And so we rethought the problem a little bit and said, all right, really what we need to know is when does a group change? And then when we know that a group changes, we can ask for whatever aspects of that change that we need. And so that we turn to REST to acquire in bulk. And then our clients handle conflicts, and they also handle offline storage. In the case of the Windows client, that actually debuted and still at the moment does not have offline storage. So you launch the Windows client, you sign in, and it acquires your snippets. And so this is really a testament to Meteor and Galaxy that performs perfectly well and online, which is really fantastic. We do plan to bring an offline capability there, but we're bowled over by the fact that it worked, and it works to this day, and people are able to use it, and that really made us able to bring something to our customers faster. So yet another case where both Meteor and Galaxy help. The admin interface we built starting with a third-party package, and this is sort of the double-edged sword of packages. So there is a rich array of packages available, both through Atmosphere and through NPM. And that's a fantastic advantage to Meteor, but it's also dangerous in that you can grab a package thinking that it is what you need and find that it doesn't meet your needs. So do be a touch careful. In the case of the admin interface, we wound up realizing that we needed to build this in-house. We were able to use some of the packages as sort of a basis or some direction for what we were doing, and that's where we went. Props to high charts, though. That's how we get our beautiful charts, and those we are capable of generating offline so that we can send them out in monthly update emails. So if you're a user of TextExpander, we send you an email that says, you expanded 3,000 snippets this month and you saved 35 hours, and so you're doing a fantastic job. For our hosting, we're using Galaxy, and that we came to through Meteor Night, so thank you for that. We found that deployment is easy, and we found that there are so many things that we had to become good at doing what we're doing now that we figured DevOps really couldn't be among them. So we're delighted to be able to have other folks who are experts at that, handling that. The load balancing has been fantastic. The visibility is good. The dashboard is handy. It's helpful that you can see the logs for each individual container as well as the aggregates. You can tell when a container is misbehaving. And it's also backed by the folks from the Meteor Development Group, so when you have trouble, they really do deliver on their one-day turnaround and help out, so we appreciate that. Lessons we learned along the way: update quickly. So you may remember that MongoDB transitioned storage engines from mmap to WiredTiger, and in the Meteor 1.4 release notes, there was an admonition that it is time to update. You should do this now. We took about 6 months longer than that and caused ourselves a lot of pain. So when people give you a recommendation to update, try your best to follow it would be some advice. We had a similar platform-specific thing happen where we were running on WebView on Cocoa, and Apple introduced WK WebView, and we didn't update that quickly enough. And so eventually one day we're running the snippet editor in iOS, and we have this random crash, and we realized that ultimately we have to switch to WK WebView at that point. So if you can avoid it being a forcing function, then update sooner. Another lesson that came to us not being from the JavaScript world and really coming from a compiler world is linting and how to manage linting across a team. So, I mean, I'm sure that this is familiar to most everyone here, but we ran into the notion that not only did we want to lint, but we also needed to standardize which packages everyone's using on the team. What we've done as our stopgap solution is to put a text file into the repo and pull that in to import the packages that we're sharing, although we certainly welcome advice from the crowd as to what we could do to do that better. Another lesson we learned is that things change really fast. And so the change from ES5 to ES6, Meteor Atmosphere to NPM packages, and so we found ourselves very quickly replacing some packages and starting a policy of, okay, if we're trying to find something new, we want to find something that's more across the board standard from NPM. The change from Blaze to React, and so what we've done there is sort of try to leverage. We have now essentially legacy code in a relatively new app, and then we're building what we're building new in React. We've gone through the transition from Kadira to Galaxy performance metrics, and so it's just dizzying in terms of how fast things change, and it's a challenge to keep up, but that's part of the fun of what this is. In terms of the future for TextExpander, we're looking to do broader adoption of React, and so right now what we wound up doing, knowing that we were going with Meteor at the time that we did the Windows client, and sort of bringing UI into the Windows client kind of later in its life, we've built components there on Windows that are the outline view, the toolbar, and the group settings. They're all built in React. They all run in JavaScript, and they all appear in Windows. And we're going to take those components back to the web app, and probably we'll also integrate them into the iOS app and Mac app, replacing what's there over time. And then as we build new things, we're building them in React and leveraging those components across all of the platforms. The other item that we have for the future is the transition from Minimongo and LiveQuery to Apollo and GraphQL, and figuring out kind of where we can leverage the best of that. We're looking at potentially offering a public API, and in doing so, we're trying to decide, okay, can we do this with an with a GraphQL basis rather, as opposed to building a traditional REST API. And it seems like things may be just exactly where we need them to be at the time that we're trying to do that. So that's where we're looking to go there. So thank you very much for your attention.